Hello, my friends. It is Jessica. This is I Read to Relax. Welcome back to my channel. And I am here today with what they call the mid-year freakout tag. So it's basically like a mid-year check-in for like how your reading's gone so far for the year, what you're excited about for the rest of the year. So I have like 18 questions. I've seen a couple different versions of this. The questions vary a little bit depending on whose videos you watch. But like I said, I grabbed these 18 questions and I'll just share with you my answers so far. And you can let me know if anything's the same, what your answers to the questions are if you want, etc. But it's a nice little way to sort of like look at where you are mid-year. The first question is, what is the best reading you've done so far this year? What are the best books you've read so far this year? Both of the books that I'm going to choose for this were actually ebook reads. So I don't have the physical copies, but I'll put the covers up here. The first one is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodges. This is just such a great epic fantasy. It's the start of a series and I'm dying for the sequel. I think that comes out next year. But The Raven Scholar is set in sort of like a kingdom where, an empire I should say, there is an emperor and the emperor's only allowed to rule for a specified number of years. And then when it's time for essentially like the regime change, they hold like a series of trials to determine who the next emperor or empress will be. We have entrants from different houses, and the houses are based on like the different mythical gods. So you have the Raven House, you have the Fox House, you have the Dragon House, and they have different attributes they're known for based on like what their god's known for. So like the foxes are tricksters and spies and mischievous. The ravens are scholars, hence the Raven Scholar. So they are about to enter a series of trials to pick the new ruler, and one of the contestants gets murdered. So now the girl who is the quote-unquote Raven Scholar that the title is based on basically is tasked with finding the murderer. And it was just so good. It is a chonky book, but every page is worth it. It's really well done, really interesting. So I'm really excited, like I said, for the next one. Another big chonky book that I've absolutely loved, one of my other favorites of the year so far, is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. And this is another epic fantasy, and this is one that's got dragons. And one of the things I loved the most about this series is that the conceptualization of the dragons is really great and sort of unique to other series that have dragons. Here, when they are when they're aware that they're going to pass, either by choice or because of sickness or grief or whatever the reason may be, these dragons can curl up and turn themselves to stone, and then they float in the sky as moons. And it's just such a beautiful depiction of grief and death and all of that. This one also had beautiful language. The pining in this book is amazing. So really loved this one. Which leads me to the next question, and I really hate just blatantly like sharing thoughts like this, but the worst book of the year so far for me. And this was one that I had really thought that I was going to love, and so it really was even worse that I just did not enjoy the experience at all. And sadly, it's That's a Great Question, I'd Love to Tell You by Elise Myers. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because, again, I don't really like bashing books, but I think her personality online is so great, and she's such a great storyteller in the visual format, that I was really, really anticipating that this was going to be really, really great. And I feel like, there was no, like, there was no cohesiveness to this collection of short stories, thoughts, whatever you want to call it. It was almost like one gigantic stream of consciousness in a brain that just would run off on random tangents. And I really, really think this book could have used a lot more editing, or harsher editing. And it just came across, I hate saying this, but it came across as really, really pretentious. Sadly, that has been my worst reading. I literally forced myself to finish that book, which I hate doing. I did not enjoy it. Okay, we're just gonna leave it at that. Best sequels of the year so far. One of them is Fairybound by Sable Sorensen. So this is the sequel to Direbound, and Direbound is about a woman who her sister gets kidnapped, and they're in a country that's at war with another country, and she's sure that the enemy country has, like, they've been kidnapping children. So when her sister goes missing, she believes it's the other side. And so she decides she's going to join the army in order to get to the front to be able to go and find her sister. The soldiers at the front are often led by very special soldiers who are bonded to direwolves. And when she signs up for the army, she doesn't realize that they're about to start a new set of bonding trials, and she gets forced to enter these trials to see if she's going to become what they call a bonded. I really love this series. I feel like it is peak romantasy. Like, when you talk about romantasy as a subgenre, these are the type of books that epitomize that. I really, I know there's a lot of people that didn't like this sequel, and I don't really understand why, because I really loved it. I thought the character grew a lot. I thought it delved even more into, like, the politics of the world. It adds whole new layers of things. And I had a rollicking good time reading this one. So that's one of my favorite sequels. And then I went back and forth about which book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series to say is my favorite sequel so far. And I think I landed on Gate of the Pharaoh Gods. I'm not 100% sure. You might ask me 10 minutes from now and it might change, because I've loved every book in this series, but I think at the moment this one is ranking as my favorite. But no matter the case, excellent, excellent series. I never thought I would be into them, and my husband convinced me to read them, and let me tell you, audiobook is the way to go for these. The audio experience is amazing, and it is a series that tackles really heavy topics offset with really dark humor, so that, like, you have a light and dark moment almost simultaneously. And it's just post-apocalyptic mayhem in the best way possible, with layer after layer after layer of depth. So you get so much more out of it than you expected to, and I think they're really great. So I love this series. Okay. Next, best reading experience of the year so far. I had trouble pinpointing this, but I think I'm gonna go with reading Dire Bound. I had, it wasn't a full slump, and it wasn't that I was shying away from sci-fi fantasy at all, because I will always be ultimately a sci-fi fantasy reader, but I think I had just read a lot of books that felt very similar sort of in the earlier months of the year, and I was kind of like, oh, maybe I need to veer away from, you know, my usual and just read all different things. And then I picked up this one because I was like, you know, I really should. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I instantly fell in love again. And I just had like that giddy moment where a book just hits you right, and you're like, yes, this is what I needed. This is what I was looking for. So much so that I ended up reading Fury Bound right after it, back to back. And I very rarely read books in the series one right after another. I usually intersperse other things for whatever reason. But I really, really, really loved this one. So, yeah, that's been my best reading experience so far this year. There were a couple others that I almost went with, and I'll get to them in other categories here. Releases that I want to get to that I wasn't able to get to yet for the year. One of them is The Ballad of Falling Dragons, which is the sequel to When the Moon Hatched. So this one came out in May? I think it came out in May. And I loved When the Moon Hatched, and so I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna dive right into this one, and I just got sidetracked by other things, so I am planning to read this one very soon, because I'm very, very excited for it. And then the other one that I might have honestly come out last year, but it is on my list. It was on my list for the first half of the year, and I just haven't gotten to it yet, is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I really want to read this book before the movie actually comes out at the end of the year. I'm also slightly terrified, and I will not see the movie in theaters because I know, without even having read the book, just from what I've heard from everybody else and my experience with her other books, I will be full on sobbing when I watch this movie, and I can't have that experience in public. It's literally gonna hurt. So I'll be streaming that at home in my private house where I can cry and pause and collect myself and cry some more and whatever the case may be. Because I feel like it's just gonna be an intense experience. Those are the two that I really need to get to, that I wanted to get to already this year. Anticipated releases for the second half of the year that I'm really, really dying for. I did limit myself to 3 on this. So these are like my 3 big, I will read them as soon as they hit my hands kind of books. The first one is Warrior of the Shards, which is book 3 in the name of the series that I can't remember right now. Hold the phone. Okay, so Warrior of the Shards is the 3rd book in the Shards of Magic series, and book 1 is Servant of Earth. These are by Sarah Hawley, and I loved books 1 and 2. This one is in a fantasy world where their town sends a certain number of young ladies every few years to go live their fantasy life in fairyland. Only that's not at all what's actually happening. And so when our main character's best friend gets chosen to go to the Fae Kingdom, she basically tries to save her and ends up trapped there herself. Fantastic series. Absolutely love those. Cannot wait for book 3. Eagerly waiting. Put it in my fingertips. The next one is Daybreak, which comes out very shortly at the end of this month, so I'm super excited, and I will most likely be rereading Nightshade before the end of this month. But Daybreak is the sequel to Nightshade, and this one is sort of a dark academia, modern Romeo and Juliet retelling. I don't even know how to describe. It's like dark academia thriller. There's 100% like Romeo and Juliet like vibes going on there later. But it starts out as sort of like almost enemies to lovers, but not quite. And just, I literally ripped through this book in less than 24 hours. Absolutely devoured it. Absolutely loved it. Yes, very excited for the sequel. And then the last one, every December, I know they're super cheesy, but every December I read the new book in this series, The Witches of Christmas Grove by Deanna Chase. This year's book is A Witch for Mr. Snow, and these are just the most magical, witchy Christmas romance books. They are shorter novels, and it's like a Hallmark movie but with witchy magic, and it just makes me smile every Christmas. So I read whatever the new one is every year without fail. Biggest surprise of the year. I wandered into my local library. I picked up this book, The Sky Beneath Us by Fiona Valpy, because it was on a librarian recommends shelf. And I absolutely love mountains. I love like Nepal. And the cover drew me in first, and then I read the description, and I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. If it's not great, it's not great, but it's recommended. I read this book and loved it, and then I read the book that is connected, and also loved that one. So Fiona Valpy is a new author. I don't read a ton of historical fiction, so I'm gonna sort of like, I think, read through her backlist like slowly when I feel like I'm in the mood, but I really enjoyed The Sky Beneath Us, and just it surprised me. So yeah, I'd recommend this one if you like historic fiction. Biggest disappointments. So I mentioned, that's a great question, I'd love to tell you. But because I already used that one, I didn't want to recycle. Another one, which I've already since donated, because I didn't enjoy it anywhere near what I thought I would, but it was Fairy Godmothers Incorporated. This is the first book in a series, and when I bought it eons ago, I thought I was gonna love it. And I mean, conceptually it was okay, but it got way weirdly steamy in a, like the romance both felt too sweet and too spicy at the same time, and just there was a lot of god-awful puns going on, and it was not what I hoped it would be. We're just gonna leave it at that. And then don't come for me. Do not come for me. This is only a disappointment because it didn't blow me away the way that I thought it would. So I pulled specifically to Twisted Crowns because I just DNF'd this one, and it's a soft DNF for now, I think. But I wholeheartedly thought that I was going to absolutely love this duology. And I read One Dark Window, and it was okay. It was good. It wasn't an immediate favorite. And I was like, okay. You know, I liked the writing, I liked the concept, it just didn't quite grab me. And then this one is just not holding my attention at all. And so it's disappointing because I really, really, really wanted to love these two. There's so many people that I know that have similar reading taste to mine that absolutely love them. And so I can't quite figure out why it's just not working for me, but it's just not working for me. Favorite new authors this year. I already mentioned Matt Dinniman, who writes the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I absolutely love this series. I have not actually read other books outside of the series by Matt Dinniman, but for this year, I'm putting him on the list for best new authors. The other one is Jacqueline Benson, the author of Empire of Shadows. I absolutely loved this book, and I loved the writing style and the ability she had to drop in a lot of information without it feeling overwhelming, and it felt natural to the story. So there was a lot of humor, there was great romance, the descriptions of the scenery, everything was great. This was a great book. So Jacqueline Benson is another favorite author for this year. New fictional crushes. Favorite book boyfriends, so to speak. I've got two. One is Con Vagar from When the Moon Hatched. He is the love interest here. And then the other one is Reed Graveheart, who is the love interest in Half City by Kate Hart. Half City. I'm just gonna put the cover up here because I, for the life of me, cannot remember the author's name right now. But here you go. Another character that I really, really liked. Okay. Book that made you cry. I'm a crier sometimes, so like moments in books will make me cry. But I felt like this was a book that if I was gonna say like the story in general made me cry, it was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I felt like there was just a lot of like dealing with emotional, you know, getting older, losing independence, family connections, grief. Like there's just a lot of things that like I consistently teared up during this book. So it was so good. It was cute. And then I watched the adaptation and I really liked that too. So I recommend both. Made you happy. So one I already mentioned, just Empire of Shadows. This one made me happy in general. If you like the movie The Mummy or Romancing the Stone, either one of those, like this is the type of book that feels like those movies, and I just always have a fantastic time with that type of story. So that was great. And then the other one, I had not read a Stephanie Plum book by Janet Ivanovich in, I can't remember how many years now. I'd sort of burnt out on that series. So I went back and I listened to the audiobook of Tricky 22, which was the next book in the series from where I'd left off. And it was just fun. It was just a fun reading experience. Nothing like to write home about, so to speak, but just entertaining as hell. So I'm gonna try and, you know, put these in once in a while. Next on the list is Most Beautiful Book. Of the books that I've read so far this year, I think physically my copy of Direbound by Sable Sorensen is probably the prettiest. It's got these great sprayed edges, and then it has this really great end page artwork. I'm losing my mind. I couldn't remember what the word was for a minute. I just think the art is really spectacular. And then they also did the, you know, cover with the design on the naked hardback. I really like the one they did for Furybound as well. Other books that I just, not necessarily new releases, but books that I need to read before the end of the year for one reason or another. One is Brother Song by TJ Klune. This is the last book in the Green Creek series, and I keep hesitating to pick it up, I think because I just don't want the series to end, because I love them so much. So I would like to read this before the end of 2026. The other one, as I mentioned, is Sunrise on the Reaping, because I'd like to read it before the movie actually comes out. Which brings me to why I have not read Sunrise on the Reaping yet, and that is because I have been putting off reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which comes before it. This one, so the original Hunger Games trilogy follows Katniss Everdeen as our main character. The bad guy through those 3 books primarily is Cornelius Snow, who is running the Capitol and forcing the Hunger Games on everyone. This book features Cornelius Snow as one of the main characters. It is a prequel, and it basically is his villain origin story. And with our political climate in the United States currently, Suzanne Collins is one of the authors who makes very distinct political commentary in her fictional books. Each of the books that has come out in the last decade has made very distinct comments about what is happening to us in the guise of this dystopian world, and you are to sort of reflect on those themes. And so I really do think that this was written for a reason. It's probably got very important commentary in it. I just have been struggling to want to put myself into his brain. So that's why I've been putting this one off. But I don't want to read Haymitch's story, which is the Sunrise on the Reaping, without having read this one. So I need to read one in order to get to the other, so I need to stop putting it off. But I just have not been able to find the right headspace yet. So hopefully before the end of the year. What is my reading goal, and do I think I'll change it before the end of the year? So my Goodreads reading goal, like the number of books I would like to read before the end of the year, I set at 72. That is a average of 6 books a month, and I feel like that's doable. I've had a few months this year where it's felt like maybe I wasn't gonna hit that, and so I got a little nervous about whether or not I would hit the 72. And then I realized one of the reasons I dropped down to 72 the last couple of years is because my reading in general has slowed down. There's been a lot of stress in my life. I'm just getting older. I don't read as fast anymore. There's just a lot of reasons, and the only person who's really putting pressure on myself is me. And so I'm keeping my goal at 72. At the moment, I'm on track to actually hit that by the end of the year, but I think whether I do or not, I'm gonna be fine with wherever I land, because realistically, there are people who don't read a single book in a year. There are people who don't read 10 books in a year. any number of books read is great. Everyone should be reading. It does such great things for your brain. It does great things for your emotional intelligence. It just broadens your horizons. But it also shouldn't be a competition ever. If you want to, you know, challenge yourself, great, you know, but like, don't compare yourself to anybody else, because there's a million different circumstances that will change how much you read, what you read, etc. So, God, I got a little emotional there. So like I said, my goal currently is 72 books for the year. I'm leaving it there. We'll see what happens. One of my bigger mental like goals for myself this year was to let myself reread once in a while, because I feel like I always am pushing myself to read new books and I don't like give myself permission to reread. So I wanted to do that. Another goal was to like let myself read big chunky books, even if they take more time, because it used to be such a numbers thing, and like I didn't want to pick up a 600-page book because I could read 2 300-page books instead. And now I'm like, but the 600-page book might be fantastic. Why am I denying myself that, you know? Do I have a favorite video that I've filmed so far this year? Honestly, no. I don't even know how I would classify that. It's been really fun to like visit the book barn. I actually had a lot of fun just putting together the little baby reel that I did about the Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So, you know, their videos are fun for different reasons. So I don't really want to pick one. And then the last question, and this is sort of what I was circling back to with goals. Do I have new goals for the rest of the year? I haven't created any new goals for the second half of the year, but I'm like reinforcing some goals from earlier in the year. And one of the other goals was that I wanted to read a couple of big authors that I've just never tried before. So before the end of 2026, I want to read a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and I actually have Atmosphere on my TBR for this month, so hopefully we'll knock that one off the goal list. But she's fantastic according to everybody, and I've just never read one of her books, so I'd like to read one. And then also a Kristen Hanna book. But Kristen Hanna books are both historical and like very heavy emotionally, and I just have not been in the right mood for that yet either. So we'll see. But yeah. So, oh my God. This was longer than I intended this video to be, but that's okay. It was a lot of questions, and I really wanted to share my answers with you guys, so I hope it was entertaining at least. But yeah, that's sort of like my mid-year wrap-up and like sort of status of where I am so far. I'm excited about some of the things I want to read for the second half of the year. I'm also a little nervous about some of the things I want to read in the second half of the year, but you know, it's always worth stretching and trying new things, and the worst that happens is you DNF a book. So, all right. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you know when to come back and check out my other videos. Leave me a comment, like, what's the best book that you've read so far this year? What was the one you liked the least? Have you DNF'd anything? That kind of stuff. Whatever you want to chat about in the comments. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.